Thank you, Shaun. Oh, it's so surreal to have Mr. Vivek here. I'm still so amazed. It feels so surreal. I'm not sure what to say, but
I wish I can pinch him too.
okay, so Mr. Vivek Mahbubani is a Hong Kong-bred bilingual stand-up comedian performing in both Cantonese and English, having been crowned the funniest person in Chinese in Hong Kong in 2007, followed by his victory in the English category at the Hong Kong International Comedy Competition in 2008. Vivek has had the opportunity to take his sense of humor all over the world, including Hong Kong, China, Macau, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, Australia, Canada, and USA. Having been ranked as the top comedian in Hong Kong in 2014, the world famous Laugh Factory in the USA ranked Vivek. I'm sorry. I think it's moved.
That's all right.
Sorry for the disruption. Oh my god, the momentum is gone now.
No
Let
problem. You're
me
doing
get
great.
back
You're
again,
doing great.
Yeah,
Keep
yeah,
going.
yeah, but the description seems to move, so I'm sorry for that, guys. The momentum is being cut off. But
I think I'm
okay,
impressed.
so
I'm impressed already. Honestly, like that was impressive. I'm like, that's good enough. I'm not showing off now.
okay, I'll continue, okay? Having been
Sure.
ranked as the top comedian in Hong Kong in 2014, the world famous Laugh Factory in the USA ranked Vivek as one of the top 10 comedians in their annual Funniest Person in the World competition. In 2015, he was handpicked as one of the comedians to represent Asia's best in Melbourne International Comedy Festival inaugural Comedy Zone Asia shows. In 2016, he was featured in Comedy Central first ever stand-up Asia show. In 2018, he was one of the recipients of the 10 Outstanding Young Person selection in Hong Kong, an annual prize that started back in 1970 to showcase the city's outstanding next generation. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vivek Mahbubani, the floor is yours.
Yay!
Vivek, we
Hey!
both need to correct Imuni. In the future, can you put in Brunei as one of the countries, please, for us?
Of course, we should.
Definitely. You can say Brunei virtual is soon to be in physical as well.
And when things get better, you must come and grace Brunei.
Oh, definitely. I'm looking forward to anywhere that I can get on a plane to.
Vivek, I told you in our meeting, I seldom watch or listen to the same audio or content more than one time, and I've listened to yours 3 times. Multiple different content, and yes, you are a funny man, but the reason why it captured my attention is, it feels like I'm going through a class on sociology. And I understand that, nothing in your CV says that you are, a sociologist trained. But, we spoke about how, when a pretty girl walked into the bar, right? And everyone would look at a pretty girl. And Vivek and the sociologist would look at everyone else. So that's, I think, the best introduction that I can have.
Exactly. That's usually the short form of what a lot of comedians have to do. We don't get to enjoy what everyone else is enjoying, but we look at it and go like, I will make a joke and then you'll enjoy my view of what's happening over here.
I will not compete with you on being funny today. I want to go straight into our conversation by making one observation that I think that you have highlighted the importance of cultural diversity and the importance of mastering different languages. You talk about how your worldview changed just by simply referring a word to in 2 different language. And in your funny video, you talk about that phrase, you die. It's very different saying it in Hong Kong Cantonese, and it is different from English. So, on that note, I want to start the conversation on the importance of language.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, as you said, language. If it wasn't for language, we wouldn't be talking today. We'd just be making signs and be like, yeah, So that's one thing about language as well. And the second thing that I always tell people, language has many layers. There's one which is usually like textbook language, is what you learn in class, right? They teach you, this is my name, this is a pencil, this is a pen. And you're able to tell people the object itself. But the third level is using language to tell you something that I'm not really saying, but I'm saying, for example, sarcasm, right? When we tell someone like, ooh, someone's looking extra pretty today, you know that person's not trying to say you're pretty. They're like, ooh, someone's trying to be pretty. So the words are telling me you're pretty, but I'm trying to say you're not pretty. So you have that. And the last level is obviously to take it and tell me something in a way that is so clear for me to understand and go, wow, how come I never could explain it in that way? But these words combined together in this structure made so much sense to me. So that's the importance of communication, also language as well. And I'm not limiting to only words language. Obviously, body language is there as well as sign language. But I'm more familiar with wording language. Like as a comedian, that's what we do. So it is so important that you understand language not from a textbook point of view only, but from a life point of view. How do people use it? What are the nuances? Like you said, in Cantonese, you could say the same phrase in Cantonese and say the same phrase in English. So different. For example, one classic example people use all the time is romance, right? When you say something in French, in a French accent, everything sounds good. You're like, yeah, I don't mind, right? But you do it in like in Cantonese, you're like, "How you say that?" That's like, whoa, okay, hold on, calm down. Why so straightforward? Couldn't I do something before that? How about we have dinner first and then I die? So there's a lot of differences. Even the same word and same meaning can have a different interpretation in different languages. So yes, as you said, it's such an important thing to learn different languages on many layers.
I'm not sure if the audience caught it, what you just say, right? Can we have dinner and later then I die?
Yeah. So basically, in Cantonese, it's always it's very instructive. Cantonese is one of these languages that is super efficient. So when I tell you go die, I probably mean right now. Drop everything, get that done now. It's like straight to the point. In English, you might can go die. All right, you know what? I'm free tonight. I'll go die tonight, right? So you have that feeling. You have a different thing. But that's the nuance of the language, that Cantonese is such a straightforward, to the point. I'm telling you right now for this moment, do that. And so therefore, it's so much more harsh, which is why if I told you, come on, guy, go to hell, in English, you're like, whatever. But in Chinese, you're like, why would you tell me to go there? I mean, it's COVID. I can't even travel. Why travel to hell?
So English is not to be taken literally, I think.
Very often you can get away. But in Cantonese, usually when you don't mean something literally, it will be taken literally.
Vivek, I consume your content, and I say it again, right? And I love to quote you. One of the things that you say about, the thing that you hated most growing up is when your friends can go play basketball and you have to be stuck with your Chinese tuition teacher.
Yeah.
Do you regret saying that? Because look at where you are now.
Well, at the time when I was in tutorial classes, I hated it. It's like telling a kid eat your broccoli. When you're 7 years old, you're like, I don't care about my bones, I don't care about my skin. I just want to go, have a burger. But then 20 years later, when you're like, oh, look, I actually have good bones. Oh, look, my skin's quite smooth. You're like, oh, thankfully I ate broccoli when I was 7 years old. So it's one of those things where you have to do it and you won't see the fruits of your labor until much, much later. But it's hard to convince a young kid, when you're so young, like, it's going to be worth it in 20 years. You're like, I'm only 7. I've never even lived 20 years. What do you tell me about 20? I don't even know this number. So that's the challenge, really. But I was very fortunate because, number one, my family tried to find different ways to encourage me to learn the language. Number two, I wanted to make friends. So for me to be able to be friends with my other classmates, I had to learn to communicate. And therefore, I had some sort of incentive to go to tutorial classes. So I knew even if I played basketball, I may not know what they're saying, so I couldn't play properly. So if I go to tuitions, I might improve, and when I go play basketball, we can have more fun with that. And thirdly, I was a dumb kid. I did not know there's a choice. I did not know you can tell your parents no. I thought that was the rules. Like, you mean you can not do what they tell you? Huh?
What tips do you have for people wanting to learn a different language? And how important is it to be able to do that?
Honestly, the first tip I tell you is understand the different nuances of language. For example, if you can understand someone's language, for example, if Cantonese, let's say you only can understand but you can't speak it out, that's around 70% of the battle because automatically you made someone else's life easier by understanding their language. Okay, so if I lived in Hong Kong and I could understand Cantonese, people will still want to talk to me because they're like, hey, they're speaking comfortably. Now, if I'm able to respond in Cantonese, that's another 20% bonus. So now not only can I understand you, I can now tell you stuff so you can understand me easier rather than you having to translate. So by 90% is just understand and being able to speak it. The last 10% is if you can read it, because usually different languages, when you can write a message down, sometimes people see the message and they're like, oh, I see what you mean. So small things like that, or when you're around town looking at signs. So I always encourage kids, the first thing you can do is just observe and listen more. So as you were saying just now, hearing and listening, I could live in Hong Kong my whole life and never understand Cantonese if I don't actively try to listen to phrases. So for example, people in Hong Kong have been here for like 20, 30 years. They may know the basics. For example, if you take the bus, like there's a minibus in Hong Kong and you want to tell the bus to stop, you have to say yao lok, right? So they might learn that phrase, which means stop please, or I want to get off over here. So it's such a simple phrase and it's survival, so they'll learn yao lok. But they won't learn other things because they don't need it. So like, I won't learn it. Even if every single day you hear it actively, you're just not actively listening, so you ignore it. But if every day you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to pay attention and see how many of these words they're saying can I get and maybe grasp one or two, then you're actively paying attention. And over time, you'll notice new regular words, always the same few words. Like, oh, I know what that is. I remember that one. Every time he has coffee, he says that word, so it must be coffee. Stuff like that. It'll happen over time, but that's the best way you can do it, actively paying attention. I'm not telling you 24 hours, but maybe every day, half an hour, make it a game. All right, today, how many secret messages can I decode from other people around me? And you enjoy that.
So, someone in the chat room say it's like watching K-drama.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. That's a perfect. It's like, okay, everyone's watched Squid Games, right? I'm sure we've all done Squid Games. Many of us got lazy and watched the English version. We didn't go to the full Korean version. But now that you watched it once in English, maybe you go switch to Korean, and then now you know what the story is. But you're like, okay, they seem to always say that. Maybe that's one phrase that people like to use as an expression. And then you see the subtitles like, oh, that's what it means, So that's a good way to challenge yourself. Because when I was growing up, we didn't have the internet, so TV was limited to 4 channels. And when there was nothing on the English channel, I was forced to watch the Chinese channels. And they used to always dub the best cartoons into Chinese. So I'm like, I want to watch G.I. Joe, but I got to watch it in Cantonese. Fine, right? So that's the best way.
You watch Captain Tsubasa? That's my favorite.
Oh really?
Oh
yeah, yeah. The one where they kick the ball. Yeah, they kicked the ball for 3 episodes. It's like slam dunk. One shot takes 3 episodes to finish.
衝力射球.
Yeah.
I'm just trying. You see, for those people who have not done their homework, right? They wouldn't get the context of how shrewd and how good your Cantonese is. Shall we start in Cantonese for the next 5 minutes? So to impress, to scare everyone.
I tell you what, let everyone, let's do a little simple game, okay? What we're going to do is you keep your hand up in your camera, okay? Keep your hand up. And we're going to speak in Cantonese. And the moment you find that I can't keep up with what they're saying, you put your hand down. We're going to see how many of you can keep your hand up and understand what's going on until the end, all right? Shall we try that? Okay, so I'm going to keep it simple, Shaun. We'll do like, we said 足球小將 just now.
Hi.
So 你中意
你中意邊個喺足球小將入邊？
我唔係好記得嗰啲名，但係我淨係記得有個人啲頭髮永遠都係斜噶嘛，個主角啲頭髮永遠都係斜嘅，係啊，所以我就覺得好型。點解佢永遠都斜一邊？但係因為佢踢波永遠都要一邊咁樣側個頭咁樣踢。同埋佢嘅手咧係咁嚟行㗎。係啊，exactly 係啊，即係呢啲咁嘅細嘢咯。咁我就係覺得最得意就係真係以前睇卡通片，你睇佢哋講嗰啲嘢，咁你會扮佢把聲噶嘛，咁就會哇！我哋今日要射波啦，咁我就會學噶啦。喂
，Vivek， 你話你好中意周星馳啦，咁你睇嗰個周星馳嗰個足球嗰部戲咧？
係 Sheldon Soccer 啊嘛。
係啊，I mean 好多係 inspired by 呢個足球小將，唔係記唔記得？
係啊係啊，佢就係要做真人嘅卡通片咯。咁佢就玩嗰啲，即係佢有個肥仔啊，佢有嗰啲唔同嘅角色啊，就係玩呢樣嘢咯。
係咯係咯。
我想講咧，我有冇發覺咧？我諗 Zoom 咧而家應該係第一次見咁多人舉手，佢應該覺得好奇怪，點解呢個 speaker 咁多人舉手都唔問問題嘅？
咁多係啦。Okay, we will open up for Q&A for the crowd, right? So anyone have any questions so far? How do you know Daydream? Is there something you want to ask? Are you impressed by Vivek's Cantonese? I mean, if you're speaking better than me, you probably write better than me and read better than me.
Good enough.
Right. Yeah, you all can put down your hand if you have questions.
Yeah.
You can put up your hand. But okay, while we are resetting, let me ask one more question before we go on to the floor. All right. Now,
Sure.
Vivek, our theme here is on resilience, right? I remember, and I'm guilty as charged, growing up, even in Brunei, we pick on our Indian friends, right? And I know that growing up in Hong Kong is no joke because they are 10 times more mean than me. And you know, even up until today, you in your stand-up comedy, you will say that you always surprise people by a lot of self-deprecating jokes to kick off, and you surprise people as well as you are commuting, meeting strangers, and you know, directing jokes at yourself. So I want to ask, you know, how important is humor in resilience? Yeah.
Every good performer or comedian in general, if they're really good on stage, chances are when they were growing up, they went through a hard time. Because in comedy, there's a formula called comedy equals to tragedy plus time. So what is very tragic today, after a while, you might look back and go like, oh, I remember that day. For example, I'm sure many of you have broken up with a boyfriend or girlfriend. And when you broke, you were like, oh, it's the worst day of my life. 1 year later, when you got over them, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not with that person. Oh, such a good thing that happened to me. So a lot of times, what is really painful today in comedy, if we give it some time, you let go of the pain and now you're able to make fun of it. So in my comedy, very often I make fun of the fact that, you know, people thought I don't speak Cantonese, or they looked at my hair, they're like, oh, so much hair, what's wrong with you? You monkey, ha ha ha, you know, things like that. And
Hey, does it hurt you?
Not anymore. Back then, it kind of annoyed because you're a teenager. You know, as a teenager, you're like, oh, what's wrong? Do I have a problem? What's wrong with me? You know, in primary school, people call me an alien because I had bigger eyes. They thought, oh, you must be an alien. I thought, oh, am I an alien? I don't know, because you're young. You wouldn't know, right? Your mom says you're not, but like, mommy, are you lying to us? Right? So you have that. But what I have found is that you have to come to a point in life and realize that this is your life. You have to be with you for the rest of your life. And so there was a moment in my life where I hated my identity. I just wanted to be Chinese. I just wanted to fit in, like, oh, why? Stop making fun of me, you know? But after long thinking, I used to write journals, talk to people, and really have a lot of time to self-reflect. And I realized one thing is that this is what I have to live with for the rest of my life. I can try as hard as I want, but I cannot get away from me because that's who I am, right? So I can either accept it or I can hate it. And if I hate it, then every day I'm going to be like, I'm still me, right? Or I can accept it and say, you know what? I'm okay with me. So if you want to make fun of it, you better be very creative because I'm okay with everything about me. I'll give you an example, okay? So I have this show coming up this Tuesday, my solo show called Humor Along My Hairline, right? And the whole concept is that I'm going bald, as you can see, right? Okay, you see this? Limited edition, okay? So
same.
Right, exactly. This is called intelligence balding, okay? People learn.
Totally agree.
Exactly. So I'll give you an example. One of my jokes I will do in the show is that I always thought, you know, this goatee, I thought this goatee was my signature. Okay, I really thought this goatee was my signature look. However, with COVID, we have to wear a mask. And I thought, oh, with my mask on, people won't recognize me anymore. Oh no. But people still recognize me on the streets. Turns out my signature is not my goatee. The signature thing that people recognize me is my receding hairline. So they're like, oh, the bald guy's the comedian, right? So for me to make that joke, I have to be so okay with going bald and losing my hair that it's okay. I don't mind making fun of it. And that way you will not have any power over me. You can't say, hey, look at you, you're balding. I'm like, I make a joke about it. What do you do? This is too late. I already joked about it. So yes, accepting yourself, number one, and resilience comes from basically believing that you'll get through it. And the truth is, one method I always use is I write a journal every single day. I know you're thinking like, what are you, 5 years old? No, let me explain to you. I've been writing journal entries every day for the last, I think, 11 or 12 years now. And what I do is before I write today's entry, I actually read an entry I wrote 1 year or 2 years or 3 years ago exactly on this day. So for example, today is the 18th of December. So tonight I might read something in 2017, 18th December, and see what I was doing. It is very likely, remember I said comedy equals to tragedy plus time? Whatever bad thing was happening to me in 2017, it's very likely I've gotten over it. Or, I survived it. And I might look back and say like, wow, I remember that day. I thought my life was over. I thought, that it could never get better. And guess what? I'm still here. I'm here. 4 years later, I'm still perfectly fine. So whatever is bad happening today, I will believe that in 4 years' time, when I read this entry, I'll be perfectly fine as well. And that cycle keeps happening. So I find that because I have this journal entry, no matter how bad my day is today, I know at most 1 year later, when I read today's entry, I'll be like, oh, yeah, I remember that day. That was crazy, but I'm still here. So, hey, guess what? Whatever happens, I'll still be here. So try me. Do whatever you need to do. And that's the belief you have to build, the confidence you have to build in yourself.
So if I'm hearing you right, write a journal as the best tool to develop grit and resilience.
Yes. Write a journal because you get it out of your system. Yeah, so write a journal, you get it out of your system. Usually things bother you because you're stuck inside, you don't have anyone to tell. Your journal is your most trusted friend because it's always private. It won't tell anybody. You write that down. Number two, read an entry you wrote from before. The further away, the better, because then you kind of go like, wow, I remember that day. Wow, that day was tough, and I'm still here. Hey, guess what? It's like if I read my journal as a kid learning Cantonese. Oh, I hate Cantonese. It's so difficult. But now I'd be like, wow, it's so worth it. If today I'm learning a language and it's just as difficult as when I was a kid, then I would know, hey, in 10 years' time, this will be so good. I can't wait for 10 years later when this is great for me. So these are the cycle. You have to the belief system you have to build in your brain. So yes, journal writing and rereading your old journal entries is a very key to resilience building.
Perspective, Vivek, perspective.
Yes.
Zuhilmi, I know you've been waiting. Fire away with your question. Hi, Zuhilmi. If you're not here, we'll move on to Tasha. Okay, Tasha, can you go first, please?
Hi, Mr. Vivek. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My question is that I noticed in your MC profile, you mentioned that you live by the quote, "Be water, my friend," by Bruce Lee. Why choose this quote out of the sea of quotes out there? Thank you.
Okay,
You've done your homework, Shaya.
Yeah, very good. So Bruce Lee was one of the people that heavily influenced me, mostly because when I was in university, I was trying to read different people and what they do, trying to discover my own style. And what I really respected about Bruce Lee was not the martial arts mostly, it was his mindset, his mentality. He somehow had an ability to kind of think differently, because I found that very often, because of my identity, I was often stuck where I had to figure something out for myself. So one of his quotes was, "Be water, my friend." And he talks about how water can be different at any moment. It changes with the time. For example, water can be very soft, as a streaming of water, or very hard when you jump and belly flop into the ocean. It hurts a lot. Water can take the shape of a cup or a bottle, wherever it is. So the challenge is, whatever situation you are given, are you able to evolve and change and shift your mindset to fit into that situation and figure out a way to solve it? So what I found is that I'm Indian in a Chinese community. So I could be like the odd one out, or I could be unique. Now, odd one out is very negative. That's me basically trying to fight to fit in, trying to push myself into a different shape. But being unique is I'm purposely trying to stand out. So one of my things I said is that if I can't fit in, I might as well stand out, and therefore I'm outstanding. So the same concept of "be water, my friend" is that if you have the mindset of water, is that when I need to be hard, I'll be hard. But when I need to be soft, I'll be soft. But remember, even if it's soft, it is still very useful, right? And I think that's the concept that really blew my mind, where I was like, you're right. It's not about I am a tough guy, There are moments to be tough. There are moments to be soft. In comedy, I could be on stage making fun of myself, you know, and you think, oh, this guy's a fun guy. I bet you every day he's just having fun, having a good time. But if you come to my room and you see me, I'm extremely systematic. I have to have my, you know, my systems of like, this is my notes, this is what I write, this is the color of my pen. Everything I have to organize because I have a system to write my comedy. It's not a matter of like having fun only. So you have to have a balance. And that's why I love that quote a lot.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
The same reason why I love Vivek, not for his funniness, but for his perspective. Daniel, what's your question?
Hi, Mr. Vivek. Now, on behalf of everyone, I think can we request like a short stand-up session? If that's possible.
Sure, I'll tell you. There are a few things that I always find that as a comedian, you always get told, you know, tell us a joke. I want a joke, right? And it's a fun thing because like in my profession, we always get challenged. But like there's no other job. Like if I were a lawyer, you won't say, oh, are you a lawyer? Yeah, well, sue me. Huh? Show me how you can sue me, right? You wouldn't do that. But this is part of the game. I always tell people this is part of the whole game of comedy. Now, as a comedian though, your biggest challenge in life is like, can you find something funny where someone else cannot? And I find in Hong Kong, it's very different because like people say Hong Kong people are not happy. Like we're not happy at all. We're actually very happy. We just don't realize it because we find happiness in a very different way. So for example, happiness somewhere else around the world might be, you know, being with the family, you know, walking in the park. But here in Hong Kong, we find happiness in one place. It is when you are alone in the lift and you see your friend is running towards the lift and your hand presses that door close button, right? And as the doors are closing, your happiness is like yes, right? So that's why we keep pressing the button so much because every time we press it, we get happy. We're like happy, right? So there you go. So simple things like that. That would be basically part of my comedy act where I'm joking about life that we do in general.
Ryan, your question.
Mr. Vivek, for my question, right? I actually watched some of your TED Talk videos. So for your perspective is like very interesting. So there's like there will be 3 angles. The first one where most people see, then this one less people see, then this one will be the comedian's angle, right? So I want to know like how did you get this perspective to react to bad things in this way? Was it from past experience or somebody guided you, or like you were just born like this, or?
Well, okay, so this concept of 3 angles minimum actually came from a book I read called Think Like Da Vinci. So I'm a big fan of Leonardo da Vinci, you know, because he was the Renaissance man. He did everything, you know. He was able to draw. He's an engineer. He's a physically active person, and I really admired how this person can have both ends of the spectrum. You notice how like even Bruce Lee, he's got the martial arts more like, you know, the fighting, but also he's got the mind part. So I love people who have multiple spectrums where they're doing more than just, you know, I'm a designer, but I can be a designer, but also be very organized, you know. So you have that thing. So I was reading the book and Leonardo da Vinci talked about how if you don't see the same item, at least from 3 different angles, you have not really seen it. So that inspired me to go like, you're right. How much of life are we missing out by not really looking properly? So when I joined in just now, there's hearing and listening. This is a very good example that 2 people can sit in the same room and listen and the same sound source is coming, but one can hear it and one will listen to it. So the same sound, same input, same data, but different way of absorbing it. Now you might say, I heard it as well, but like, did you really hear it? Did you hear every single word? Did you notice that when the person said this, they said that? So these are the challenges. And that's what Da Vinci talked about in all his notebooks, is like he's trying to see the same thing, but from multiple angles. So he was the reason why I think of this triple angle concept in my mindset.
Wow, that is deep.
Can I ask like?
Sorry, one question. We have too many hands up here, right? So, Hao Xiang, your question.
I'm to be completely honest, I'm a bit nervous now because I feel like I can't really
join the club.
All right then, Mr. Vivek, it's an honor to meet you. And how to say this? I personally am also in learning to try to learn a bit of Mandarin because it's my mother tongue and I somehow can't speak it as well.
You're putting him to shame,
Vivek. And I've been trying to learn it from consuming Chinese media as well, such as music. Right, this is what I've been trying to do, and now I think I would like to try to learn how to read it better. So I have noticed that there is traditional script and simplified script. Like, would you consider one is more often or more beneficial to have than the other?
Okay, so if you look at it, so in Hong Kong, we actually use traditional writing. So that's the older school type. In mainland China, you use simplified. So different places use different things. Like I remember when I was in Taiwan, they speak in Mandarin, but they write in traditional Chinese. So if you ask me from a purely practical point of view, the simplified Chinese is more widely used because the whole of mainland China uses it. So if you're going to learn it, that might be a better way. However, what you do find is with traditional Chinese is that it's got so much more detail that you can appreciate. So one of the simple examples I remember someone told me is that the word for love is that in traditional Chinese, there's the word heart inside the word as well. But in simplified, they took away the heart. So they, so small things like that, where the deeper meaning is gone. I mean, they're like, we understand, but I'm like, yeah, but it's not about just understanding. Like I said, it's like you can go eat a Michelin star dinner, right? And you eat, you're like, oh, I'm so nice and full. But that wasn't the point. The point was to enjoy and savor every taste in your taste bud. So you might say, yeah, but even after doing that, I'm still full. I'm like, yes, I know. You want to be full, but it's the process you want to enjoy. So what I find in traditional Chinese, it's like enjoying the process a bit differently. You're taking every taste that you can find in a taste bud and enjoying that. With simplified Chinese, it's like, let's get to the point. I want to just tell you this is love. Okay, move on next. So it depends on what you're doing. I think from the difficulty point of view, simplified is definitely easier because it's more widespread use in that sense, and also fewer strokes per character. So it just makes it much easier to pick up. However, like I said, from a more it's like artistic, like I said, your room, you could have a normal white light, or you could learn about, how can I have some mood in the room. So small things like that. I would say step one, go simplified, just because it's easier to pick up. But then you can learn the simplified. But okay, now that I know simplified, what's the advanced, the more complex traditional version of this same character? And you'll find, oh wow, it's interesting. So different characters in same characters in simplified have different versions in tradition as well. So I would recommend that way. That's the path to go.
Vivek, I'm just indulging in every single word that you've just said. What a great ambassador for the Chinese culture and language. Amazing perspective. Vanessa, your turn.
Hello, I would just like to say it's amazing to be able to talk to you, Mr. Vivek.
Thank you, too kind.
My question is, have you ever told a joke so bad either as a stand-up comedian or like in real life? Like if it's a joke very bad and like it made someone hurt or something, or you really didn't like it, like how do you backpedal from it?
Okay, so there's different types. So you've asked different angles of the bad joke. So there's one bad joke where I said it and I really hated saying it. I offended somebody in a way I didn't want to offend. There's one where I said a joke that I feel is below my level, as in like I can't believe that's a joke I'm saying out of my mouth. And then there's one where I said it and no one's laughing. Okay, so I've had all three experiences, and I'll tell you the three experiences. So the one where I can say that I said the joke and I hated every part of it was many years ago. I had to do a TV show on this channel called ATV in Hong Kong, and they had this advertisement awards. And oddly enough, it's actually on YouTube. This video is still there. And I was giving a talk the other day to a school, and I actually used as an example of like, because I was talking in a designer school, and I said the most important thing as an artist is to know what is your bottom line. How low will you go? As in, like, are you willing to even do this just for the money or what? So you know what I'm going to do later on? I'm going to quickly search later on YouTube and find that link and send everybody that, because that was one time I was on the TV show and they booked me to do, and that was in the beginning of my comedy career. So I had no experience. I did not know how the market works. And so basically they hired me. They said, okay, you're going to come on the show as a guest appearance. You're going to perform for a little bit of comedy. And I said, okay, great. And then they said, we'll provide the script for you. I was like, wow, is that how it works? I mean, I don't have to write the joke. This is, wow, I thought I have to write the jokes. This is great. So Friday night, we had the rehearsal. And Friday night, they sent me the script. And every joke was basically the Chinese equivalent to a dad joke. So in Chinese, we call 懒get. Right? And every joke was like, oh my God, really? Did he just say that? Ugh. And I read it. I was like, oh my God, these jokes are terrible. This makes me, I found the link. This makes me like look like a fool, So, and I was like, and Friday night, I was like, man, this is terrible. I can't believe I'm going to be doing this. But I thought, well, it's live tomorrow. I can't write a new script now. It's too late. So I was like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Saturday afternoon, we were filming live. And I was like, I don't know. I hate every part of the script. Should I do it? Should I just go out there and just not do it and just do my own stuff? But I'll get in trouble, you know. I'll get, I don't know what to do. So I remember looking in the mirror and I hated every moment of before going on stage. I did the terrible script. And every single day after that, I tell myself I will never allow anyone to ever write my jokes for me because I want to make sure my quality control is there. It is so important to me that I say everything coming out of my mouth has to pass my own quality control. So that's the one example of like a bad joke where I said a joke that wasn't really mine and I said it through my mouth, but the world will see that's his joke. You know, it came out of my mouth. The other one is like, I remember, this is a bit sensitive, but like in 2019 when the Hong Kong protests were happening, there was a day when the police were out there, you know, fighting protesters and everything in Tsim Sha Tsui, this area on Kowloon side in Hong Kong. There's a very big mosque, okay? And so, you know, there was a lot of protesting on the streets and everything. And after the protesters left, the police came out with a water cannon, and the water cannon sprays blue color water, right? And I don't know what they were doing. There were not really any protesters and everything, but they actually sprayed the mosque with blue water cannon water. And someone filmed it from the top, like from basically like a top of the building, and they filmed the police water cannon coming in and spraying the mosque, right? And so it was all over the news. So I was doing a comedy show a couple of nights after that, and I was like, oh, we all heard about the recent news, you know, where the police were spraying the mosque. You know, it was terrible stuff, right? But and the joke was, but you know, I'm Hindu, so technically, you know, Muslim Hindu. So I was like, you do that, police, spray that mosque, yay, you know. So as a joke, the tension between Hindus and Muslims, right? Now I thought it's just a funny whatever, but I remember I finished that, and that night someone told me, they were like, you know, that was really below the belt, you know, like a really low level joke. And I was like, you know, you're right. I basically took a shot at something that like who was a victim just because I thought it was kind of funny because I'm not the victim. And I said, you know, that's below. So that was a joke that I cut out immediately because I was like, you know what, you're right. You reminded me that I'm better than that. I don't need to punch you while you're down. Okay. And then the third one is like usually whenever you do a lot of different private events, especially company events, when it's anything to do with networking, if people are there to exchange business cards and you have to be the entertainment, this is what we call immediate death, because nobody cares about you. They are there to exchange business cards. When you're, hey guys, my name's Vivek, they're like, I don't care about you. This guy has money, you don't. I'm going to talk to this guy. And so you have those experiences as well where you completely what we call bombing on stage and nobody laughs. So I've had all three experiences, but you know, that's part of the game. You know, that's part of the whole story that you have to get through if you want to stay as a comedian.
Vivek.
Yeah.
The mosque example, you know, speaks so much of your character on someone who is owning up to, and I'm very sure as I was listening to it, all 600 people in here would say the same thing. We all have done that before. That you know, saying something that we regret, but how many people have the courage to own up to it? So I think this in itself is a great lesson. Guys, we don't have any more time for any more question. My final remark, and if you have anything to add on, you know, for a quick 1 minute, and then we will end this session. Vivek, I was so impressed. You know, every single question that was being thrown at you is as if you have been rehearsing it for 100 times. You know, I mean, even if myself who have rehearsed it wouldn't have said it so point on and poignantly. What is your secret? Is it a talent? Is it hard work? 1 minute.
I would say honestly, it's knowing yourself. There's a quote called "Know thyself," and that's the most important thing at the end of the day. If you know your personality, if you know your character, nobody can shake that. So like I said, I'm able to own up to stuff I've done because I know I'm better than that, and I will be better than that. So I'm willing to let you know, this is what I've done. I know that was no good, but you know what? Watch what I'm doing now, and you will see like, okay, he's learned and he's grown. And secondly, I try my best to be as authentic as possible. I'm not perfect, but I've learned to realize that no one is perfect. No matter who your idol is, no matter who it is, the more you read their biographies, the more you realize, wait, they're not that perfect either. You know, they've gone through their own struggles as well. And the thirdly is because I write my journal, every day I face my own inner demons, and I don't get to run away. I write and I face them. And the more you face it, the more you are sure about what you are saying is what is true to your identity, and the more you'll be authentic and be more genuine in what you say. So like I said, I'm more than happy to tell people about the things I've done, the bad things that I'm embarrassed about, and I'm happy to even laugh about it because I'm able to face it every day. And I highly encourage you, that's what you should do. Never run away. Look forward and say, you know what, today's my tragedy, but as you said, with some time, this will be comedy, and one day we'll all laugh about it.
heartfelt appreciation, Vivek. You are a big man. My favorite quote of the day, not giving others power over you. Ladies and gentlemen, Vivek Mahbubani.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vivek.
Thank you so much.
Moni, over to you.
The floor goes to Farah.
Hi,
Farah,
hello.
Farah, it's your turn.
Yes, it is. So thank you so much, Mr. Vivek, for the positive energy you brought to this program. One of the things that I really, really wanted to quote was that you have to be with yourself for the rest of your life. So it's up to you to either hate it or accept it. So thank you for showing us that self-growth and self-confidence are things that we have control over. And perhaps another quote that I think we can all live by is resilience comes from believing that you'll get through it. So everyone, remember that we all have what it takes to strive and thrive. And I like to think that we are all funny in our own little ways, but I honestly don't know if I can ever top describing balding as intelligence balding and limited edition hair. So that's
Stop poking fun at us, Farah.
But you said it.
You're jabbing us. One day.
Perhaps this is my moment to start training as a top comedian. But until then, I'll leave the floor to Vivek and Shaun. So once again, thank you so much, Vivek, for sharing so much with us.